Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erica with Memory Box Candle Co. and I make videos all about making and selling candles. In today's video, I'm going to be taking you through a full review of Accu-Soy number 10, which is also known as just Soy 10 wax. Now, I have been working with this wax for about 2.5 to 3 years, so I've gotten pretty familiar with it. So I'm going to be taking you through a list of pros and cons on this wax. So the pros of this wax and the reasons why I love it so much and have continued to work with it for all these years is number one, I just love the consistency of this wax. So the consistency of it is very creamy and moist, and I apologize for those of you that hate those words, but those are the best way that I can actually describe this wax. It's much different than like a 464 that's flaky and dry. When I think of 464, I think of flaky and dry. And that in my head is what makes me think of why the tops of 464 candles can kind of look a little cratery, is just because of the actual consistency of the wax itself before it's turned into a candle. Versus something like Soy 10, it is very creamy in texture. It creates those really beautiful white smooth tops on the candles, and it's very similar to something like a coconut 83 or even like a coconut apricot wax, virgin coconut soy. All of those waxes are very similar in texture. Some of them will feel a little bit softer like butter. Some of them will have a little bit more structure. To me, Soy 10 is a lot harder in consistency than like a virgin coconut soy. That to me is very soft, as well as a coconut 83 is very soft. Soy 10 has a little bit more structure to it, and I just love the consistency of it. I think that it makes beautiful candles. Something else that I really love is I don't get that crater look. I don't get a lot of sinkholes with Soy 10. In my personal experience, I think that maybe depending on, who's working with it, it may have those issues. But for me personally, I've never had those issues before. And I don't actually have to use a heat gun on the top of my candles either, because the tops of them are very smooth. The only time in the past that I did have to heat it with a heat gun was when I was working specifically with the Eco Series wicks and Soy 10 mixed together. Those two combinations for me, I just noticed that there was some wax that would kind of grip on to the bottom of the wick, kind of right where you would cut the wick at that 1/4 inch length, and I didn't like the way that it looked, because it looked like there was a tiny little hole by the wick and I would have to use the heat gun to smooth it out. But as soon as I switched over to the CDN series wicks, I haven't had that issue. So I really don't know what that's all about, but I'm just happy that I don't have to use a heat gun anymore. I also love that I could work with hotter temperatures with this wax. I know that with something like a 464 wax, that is something that a lot of people will work at slightly cooler temperatures, so waiting until about 120 to 140 degrees to pour. I actually like to pour pretty hot when working with my Soy 10. So me personally, I like to heat up my wax to between 190 degrees Fahrenheit to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I add in my fragrance oil anywhere between 180 to 190, stir it for about 30 seconds, and then pour right away. So typically I'm pouring anywhere from 165 to 175-ish degrees Fahrenheit. I don't check it really that often when I'm making candles anymore, just because I kind of have my rhythm going and I kind of know basically genuinely where it's at that time. But that just kind of gives you kind of an indication that I do tend to pour pretty hot with this wax. Soy 10 can also hold a slightly higher than average amount of fragrance oil for a container wax. Typically what I've seen is around 6 to 10% is the range that I've seen for most container waxes, and Soy 10 does claim to be able to hold up to 12%. However, I really don't think that's necessary, because the hot throw with this wax is really good. If you have wicked everything correctly with the container that you're working with and the fragrance oil quality, it can produce a really powerful hot throw candle. And I only do about 8% fragrance oil, and it's really strong. So I love that about this wax. However, there is no wax that is going to be all positive, so let's go ahead and get into the cons. And the first thing that I wanted to mention is that this wax comes in slab form. And for a while, the manufacturer was actually, their machine to cut it into slabs was broken. So there were a couple of orders that I received that were all in a block. So it was one giant rectangular block of wax, and it was a pain in the butt to actually cut and get out. It hurt my wrist. I hated it so much. And the slab form is so much better, but it's definitely not as simple as just being able to scoop out a bucket of wax flakes and be able to dump it into your melter. That is so much easier. So that's definitely a con of this wax, is that it only comes in slab form. Also, I wanted to add this in here because I personally don't think it's a con. I did when I first found out, but now I'm just kind of used to it, and I understand the chemical makeup of the wax to be able to get it to the consistency and the performance quality that it's at. But Soy 10 is not 100% soy. It is a blend of a little bit of food grade paraffin. So it's basically the same thing that like coconut apricot is, virgin coconut soy, coconut 83. They all have a little bit of paraffin in it, and that is just the quality of the makeup of the wax. And so you can't advertise Soy 10 as 100% soy wax candle. I think this is a con with almost every single wax because everybody's situation is going to be different, but wicking can be kind of a challenge with Soy 10. I haven't been able to figure out how to make Soy 10 without adding in some beeswax to it, so I do my own kind of custom blend with my candles with the wax, so I'm not just using Soy 10 with it. And again, I think that this is pretty much goes with any wax, that wicking is just hard in general, but I wanted to add that in there, that no wax is going to be magical and easy with wicking and all that kind of stuff. It's still going to take a lot of trial and error. So no matter how good the wax is, you still have to go through that process of figuring out the combination of the jar, the vessel that you're using, and the wick or wicks that you're using with the wax and fragrance oil. So you can't skip past that, and Soy 10 is definitely no different. Something else that I've noticed about Soy 10 is definitely frosting and glass adhesion issues. So this is something that is pretty typical, again, with a lot of different waxes, but I actually don't have to worry about this as much when working with my matte black vessels, because you can't see outside, but you can see on the top. So sometimes I'll notice the pulling of the wax from the container itself, and you can really see that along the rim. Chris actually notices it a lot more than I do now. I used to notice it a lot more often, but as long as the candle is not falling out of the container, I don't think it's that big of an issue. If it's really, really bad and it's really, really shrinking really badly, then yeah, that's going to be an issue. But I would just take it with a heat gun, try to get it to adhere to the glass a little bit better. But I do find that when I pour hotter, it's better adhesion. So that's what I do with Soy 10, and it seems to work pretty well. But again, with the changes in temperature, so drastically of cold and hot, sometimes you can't control what the natural process of the wax is going to do. And the last con of Soy 10 is the availability of it. How do you get it? Where do you get it? Is it in stock? Who knows? We don't know. I feel like it's gotten a little bit better in the sense that there's a lot more suppliers that are carrying Soy 10. When I first started using Soy 10 3-something years ago, there was only 2 suppliers for it. And that was, you know, kind of an issue with that. Now there's a lot more suppliers that are carrying it, and I will make sure to list them either right here or down below in the description box in case you want to check it out, and in case you didn't know that there were more than just 2 suppliers now that carry it, which is fantastic, and I'm really, really happy about that. But I think that is going to conclude today's video on the pros and cons of Soy 10. I can't believe I've never done this video before. I just had somebody ask about this, and I'm like, why have I not done this before? Just kind of an in-depth look on my personal take on the pros and cons of this wax that I love so much. And yeah, so I think I'm going to end today's video right here. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave it a thumbs up, as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to follow me over on Instagram at Erica Marie Morris, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.